have major breaking news this morning on ESPN and Get Up. The Cowboys and Steelers are working to finalize a trade that will send wide receiver George Pickens to Dallas in exchange for draft pick compensation. Schefter dropping that bomb from a plane earlier this morning. He's on an airplane, and the trade is, I didn't like the phrasing of that. The trade is expected to include a third-round pick, other pick swaps, and is expected to be finalized today. Let me run through a few brief notes here. Michael Wilbon, Peter Schrager jumped in from Brooklyn. Dan Orlovsky is up early with us this morning. Schefter then tweeted, "These are the moves the Cowboys have made this offseason in trades. They've acquired George Pickens. They acquired quarterback Joe Milton, young. They acquired the linebacker Kenneth Murray. They acquired cornerback Khair Elam. So they've been busy in the trade department as well, obviously, as a really good draft. What are the Cowboys doing? What exactly is their plan here?"
Well, look, they hired Brian Schottenheimer in the most unorthodox way we've seen a head coach be hired in recent years, and let their previous coach's contract just expire, did not interview all the top other candidates and hired from within. And Schotty's whole thing has been, don't worry about sizzle, don't worry about this. We're all about culture, 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 culture. George Pickens has a history of having temper tantrums on the sidelines, and when he doesn't get the ball, throws his helmet and does the histrionics when the game is not going his way. So on paper, you look at this and say, well, what are you about? You about drafting an offensive lineman 12th overall over a skill position player because that's what we're going to be, meat and potatoes? Or is this a panic move saying, all right, we're going to trade a third-round pick this far from the draft, not knowing what that third-round pick will be, to go get our number 2 wide receiver? I will say this. I've spoken to Steelers sources over the last year because Pickens would have national games where he's throwing his helmet and crying on the sideline, the whole thing. It's not him necessarily Monday to Saturday. He is just one of those guys on the field that is so emotional. So if he's not a culture ruiner, he's not a guy that's going to upset the apple cart, he is a great number 2 option to CeeDee Lamb. The question is, if he does have that major year, is it a 1-year deal because it's the final year of his contract? You got to pay him at some point anyway.
Right. And the Steelers clearly had decided they weren't going to do that. And so the Cowboys will take a chance. He's sort of a distressed asset, Dan. If you look at it that way, he is a player whose talent obviously far exceeds the cost it took to go out and get him, the price they paid, meaning a future third-round pick. So, to be honest with you, I kind of love it from a Cowboys perspective. If you catch lightning in a bottle here, this could wind up being a significant improvement to their offense.
Greeny, he averages 16 yards a catch the past couple seasons, and he didn't play with Dak Prescott over that period of time. Cowboys got a chance. If George Pickens plays to the way that he has played over the past couple seasons, this would be a top 8 offense in the NFL. I've talked about it. I think this offensive line is going to be one of the better ones in the NFL by the end of the season. We all know CeeDee Lamb is a superstar. Now you're adding George Pickens in, who averaged 16 yards a catch with the revolving door at quarterback. This has got a chance to be a pretty darn good offense when it comes to what happens in Dallas. And you're talking about the ability to push the ball downfield. I say this all the time. Football is math. You only got 11 to play. So we're talking about a team that this offensive line develops and can run the ball just a little bit. CeeDee Lamb on one side, George Pickens on the other. This is going to be a really good offense down in Dallas. I guess my biggest takeaway, Greeny, before Mr. Wilbon gets in is trades. Why did Pittsburgh trade him then? If he's not a problem.
Right.
Look, they're getting rid of him.
At a certain point, you have a guy who's going to the final year of his contract. They did bring in DK Metcalf, and if Mike Tomlin's done with you and Mike Tomlin doesn't think you're worth the squeeze, well, then maybe that's a message to the rest of the league. They were talking about this before the draft. Trade talks then went off the table, and then it really heated up last night. But to your point, desperate times calls for desperate measures. The Cowboys are looking at their roster right now. They didn't get that number 2 wide receiver. They now have that number 2 wide receiver, and they're willing to roll the dice saying, culturally, we got this. Whatever happened on the sidelines there in Pittsburgh, that's on them.
Mike, those two things are in conflict. You're going to talk culture, and then you're going to do this? Okay, Monday through Friday, I'm sorry.
I hear you.
Sunday, what's that behavior like? How does that go down in the locker room? Is your room strong enough to either really change his behavior, incorporate it, or ignore it? Because it's got to be one of those 3. Or the math, and I hear Dan loud and clear, and of course he's right about that. But, people sabotage teams. And for Mike Tomlin to say, I've had enough, that would send some sort of message to me.
Right. And anytime you can acquire a player from another team, you have to ask yourself the question, why is that player available? The only other thing I'll say is most teams don't pay 2 wide receivers big money. They've paid DK Metcalf big money, so maybe they decided they weren't going to pay him. This is not the same as Cincinnati, which was sort of a unique situation. Go ahead, Danny.
Teams do it all the time nowadays, Greeny. Miami, Philadelphia, Cincinnati.
Hey, guys, that big...
Where did Aaron Rodgers play into this conversation? Where did he play into the decision? Did he know that this was potentially going to be the case in Pittsburgh? Is that part of the Monday through Saturday? He's not a culture killer, but there were sideline blowups. Did Pittsburgh maybe think that, we're going to get Rodgers, and so maybe him and Aaron would butt heads and not coexist, and so that was a move. And I know it's been talked about. Does this reignite the addition of a Brandon Ayuk? Because I think it from Pittsburgh's perspective, Greeny, and I go, if I was Aaron Rodgers, what would be appealing about going to play football in Pittsburgh right now for me? As I sit here this morning, Wednesday morning, May 7th, I get only George Pickens. That doesn't sound like a place that a 42-year-old quarterback should go and play.
DK.
DK, yes, but correct. And Matt Miller, I was just looking through some of the reaction during our commercial break, tweeted, and I wonder if you would agree with this. Mike Wilbon, I'll start with you. This is the worst roster the Steelers have had in the Mike Tomlin era. So as long as Tomlin's never had a losing season, he's been there. I mean, right this minute, that cupboard is bare, and that defense is getting...
walk. No, you don't let him walk, you push him.
Yeah.
And look, that team, they stopped pulling on the rope at the end of the year. There's no other way to say it. You watched that playoff game last year.
And Russell Wilson and Justin Fields weren't it either. So you have this giant quarterback question. All of this is moot unless you know who the quarterback is. And to Michael's point, look, you're bringing in Rodgers. At this point, he's missing April practices. He's 41 years old. We're now in May. This isn't one of those where you could... Tom Brady might have come to the Buccaneers at 45, but when he got there, it was, all right, during the COVID season, we're all going to get together right there. Let's go. We're going to make this. He was a culture lifter. So to me, it's not George Pickens is almost secondary to this thing. What's Rodgers' deal today?
Well, I mean, wouldn't that be delightful to know that? Danny, final word.
It's the least appealing offense situation-wise in the NFL right now. It's the least scary offense in the NFL right now. And if Pittsburgh adds Aaron Rodgers, I honestly don't think that changes all that much. This is an offense that, outside of DK, is devoid of big-time talent. Robert Woods is a nice player. Calvin Austin's a good player. Freiermuth's an up-and-coming tight end. But this is the least scary offense in the NFL right now.
A lot of people like that running back, Caleb Johnson, that they just drafted. But we'll see what winds up. I completely agree. This is an offense that will scare no one in a division with a lot of scary offenses.
But what if they had Shedeur?
Much more on that. They could have taken Shedeur at any point Friday. And what are you doing to me over there? Think I didn't get enough of that when I was back in Green Bay? Let's do it. Time to get up. Come on, everybody. Fired up and ready to go. We acknowledge the great one. Michael Wilbon is in our studio today, and we are thrilled for it. Jay Will up early with us. Schrager just raced here from Brooklyn. You're about to find out why in a minute. Orlovsky is up early. Monica is with us from Boston this morning. We will have Windy later today as well. But it begins with massive breaking news in the NFL. Schefter drops a bomb a little less than an hour ago. The Dallas Cowboys and Pittsburgh Steelers are finalizing a trade. It will send wide receiver George Pickens to Dallas in exchange for draft pick compensation. The trade's expected to include a third-round pick, other pick swaps, and is expected to be finalized Wednesday. Wednesday, by the way, is today. So let's dive into it. Orlovsky is up. Wilbon's in on it, but we start. Peter, we've been waiting and wondering what would happen with Pickens. We thought it might happen before the draft. It didn't. Now what?
The Cowboys were in the hunt to look for a wide receiver this entire offseason. They had not made that move yet. They finally do, and I will tell you that the Steelers have been looking at their wide receiver room for quite some time. They tried to get Brandon Ayuk last year in a deal from San Francisco. It didn't come to be. Instead, they traded a second-round pick for DK Metcalf and then gave him a $30 million a year contract. George Pickens entering the final year of his contract. And I would like to correct some people. Some people think that he is a diva or he's cantankerous. I talked to the Steelers folks. George Pickens is demonstrative on the field, but he is not an uncoachable player. In fact, he does have a great way about him in the locker room and is very well liked in Pittsburgh. For the Dallas side of this, they sat on an all draft. Everyone wondering, why are they not drafting a wide receiver? Why are they not drafting a running back? They took an offensive lineman. They get a player who I think is the best available prospect for a third-round pick, and then they can decide if they want to re-sign him or not.
Well, listen, that's a good point. The contract piece of this is something, but if they had gotten a player the caliber of George Pickens in the third round, we would have been losing our minds on this set last Friday. And Orlovsky, we were talking about this a lot leading up to and during the draft. They need to address wide receiver. They need to do something there. Cowboys I'm talking about now. Instead, and Jerry sort of hinted, I've got something up my sleeve, and it turns out he did. What do you make of this trade from the Dallas side first, Dan?
Yeah, the move squarely puts the Cowboys as a playoff contending football team this coming season. I anticipate the Cowboys to be better than other people. And a couple months ago, Greeny, it was the Cowboys can be a playoff contender if two things happen. Number one, that Dak Prescott has to stay healthy. That hasn't been the case recently. And then two, they got to get a number two guy opposite CeeDee Lamb. George Pickens, in the chaos of the quarterback situation at Pittsburgh, averages like 15 yards a catch. So we're talking about adding that to a wide receiver opposite CeeDee Lamb that is going to get you about 100, 110 catches a season and push 1,500 plus yards. George Pickens, contract year, yes, he's not a perfect type of player, but his ability to go down the field and make plays with an offensive line that I think is going to be one of the better ones in the NFL to back into the season, this squarely puts the Cowboys back into we are a playoff contending football team.
And then the other side of this, there is another name that I think has to get mentioned when it comes to this story. You've got obviously the Cowboys and Jerry Jones and Dak, and you've got George Pickens himself, and you've got DK Metcalf. And then there is the ever-present and also ever-absent quarterback in Aaron Rodgers. Michael is booing before we even get the question out.
I know where it's coming.
What are we doing here?
Greeny and I have been talking about me being in New York on the way to Boston, by the way, for the night, for a few days. And I texted him, and I just said, I will come on as long as the name Aaron Rodgers cannot possibly come up.
He got
and
you.
I get here 6:45 this morning, and Greeny says about this breaking news. So we will have to talk more about the most now, as great as he is, first ballot Hall of Fame. Good. Absolutely. There's no doubt about that. He has now become the most overrated and overstated quarterback in the league. Because last I checked, he'll be 42 years old sometime.
He will be this coming season, yes.
And is it like 4 or 5 years since Aaron Rodgers was any damn good?
Yes.
And yet, people talk about him. Why don't we just go get John Elway out of mothballs? I mean, when people talk about Aaron Rodgers as if we're going to get the 2010 version. No, we're not. And we don't move on from it. And so I know here this trade is going to be Aaron Rodgers. If the Steelers, really, they're going to wait on this for Matt. So even if he's great for 1 year, what have you done? What have you done to your franchise, to your room, to your compensatory resources? What do you do? So nobody just looks at this and says, I'm sorry, this guy he's not Tom Brady. Because we would have seen that over the past 3 or 4 years, and we haven't. So I know, here we go. The overstatement of Aaron Rodgers begins anew.
Well, what do we state about Aaron Rodgers today? I mean, there's still no
that the Kentucky
sign.
Derby was thrilled. Everyone was gossiping. Does he have a wedding ring?
He had a wedding ring on.
No football talk. So we still wait. As was the case in February, as was the case in March, he told teams, I am on my own timetable. If you need to move on, I understand. It must be nice.
Good for him.
Well, now
he's got a Hall of Fame career. And you know what? That Hall of Fame career is over. And we're the ones who don't want to get over it. He sounds like he's perfectly adjusting to what comes next. Go to the Derby. You used to see Aaron Rodgers a lot at NBA playoff games.
Yeah.
It was great to talk to him then. He's really relaxed. But the notion that you're going to get the 2010 Aaron Rodgers, I find it.
Or even the 2020 Aaron Rodgers. They would settle for he won the MVP in 2020. That was really the last time we've seen him look like that player. Danny, go.
Yeah, just how I said before that this puts Cowboys firmly as a playoff contender. I think this move takes Pittsburgh firmly out of the playoff conversation. I mean, their offense is really DK Metcalf and Pat Freiermuth right now. Robert Woods, so they don't really have that secondary pass option. Is this the least scary, least appealing offensive unit in the NFL right now? No longer having George Pickens. So attaching to Aaron Rodgers, I don't know if this is a place, if you're an older quarterback, you're like, man, I can't wait to get compare. This was a situation where it wasn't an awesome one a month ago. And now it's obviously less awesome. And so if I'm Aaron Rodgers, Pittsburgh just doesn't look like a place that, as a 42-year-old quarterback, I really have an appeal to go and play for, just because below average offensive line, one really dynamic offensive piece. Freiermuth is nice. This makes me think that Rodgers is going to look at Pittsburgh less appealing than he did a month ago.
I would just add Najee Harris is no longer there either. He went to the LA Chargers, and this looks more like an Arthur Smith offense that we know, where it's two tight ends, let's run the ball, let's move chains. But they did trade a second-round pick for DK Metcalf and give him $30 million a year. So they're not throwing in the white flag just yet.
All right, I have to get to all the injury news out of the NBA, and we'll be on this all morning long. But a quick take on the Cowboys from you, Michael. Dan just said this puts them squarely in something. Their division is so tough. How good are they?
I live in Washington.
Playoffs.
I've been hearing this about the Dallas. I hear this every year about the Cowboys.
Yeah.
Every year. At some point, there's more than simply putting these pieces together as if it's fantasy football. Yes, it seems like a reasonable move to make. Am I suddenly going to vault the Cowboys with their star quarterback coming off yet another injury above all these other teams that seem to be much further along in this offseason process than the Cowboys? No, I'm not. I can wait.
Okay, let me leave that there for the moment. Much more football. We're putting this together on the fly. We're going to get Louis Riddick in here. We're going to get RC in here. But now we get to the NBA.